Hello everyone, this is Ragini 3. So let us discuss about the question and answers from the unit Human Reproduction. Okay, these are the salient features in Human Reproduction unit, and it includes reproductive events in humans such as gametogenesis and fertilization, insemination, gestation, implantation and parturition. And this chapter will give a detailed knowledge of male and female reproductive systems. Okay, the mark weightage. NEET carries 3% questions from this particular chapter, and in board examination it has a 10 to 16 marks. So these are the mark distribution. It has 5 sections: 1 mark, 2 mark, 3 mark, 4 mark and then 5 marks. Okay. The important topics that are covered over here is 1 mark you get from definitions, 2 mark you will be getting structure and diagrams and definitions, 3 mark you will have graphical representation, 4 mark you will have diagrams with full explanations. And topics to be covered over here are male reproductive system and female reproductive system, detailed structure of sperm and ovary, menstrual cycle, fertilization and implantation, pregnancy and embryonic development, parturition and lactation. So the first question is you have to draw the male and female reproductive system with full labeling. So here is the diagram of the male and female reproductive system. So you have male reproductive system, female reproductive system. The important parts over here is we have this testis. Inside testis we have testicular lobules which are about 250 in number, and each lobule will contain seminiferous tubules which will the site for the synthesis of sperms. Okay, and then we have accessory glands such as rete testis, vasa efferentia, epididymis, and then we have this vas deferens, and then we have seminal vesicle, prostate gland and bulbourethral gland, which are also important. The other parts you have to mention are ureter, urinary bladder and urethra. And female reproductive system, you have ovary and then you have fallopian tube. So this fallopian tube will contain infundibulum, fimbriae which catch the egg released by the ovary, and then ampulla, isthmus. And then uterus. Uterus contains uterine fundus, uterine cavity and 3 layers such as endometrium, myometrium and perimetrium. And you have to mention cervix, cervical canal and vagina. So these are all the parts that you have to mention. Okay. And we have here the theoretical things that I said over from the diagram, and you can take a note of it. The next question is gametogenesis. So you have to explain what is gametogenesis. So gametogenesis is the process of producing sperm and egg, and spermatogenesis is the production of sperm, and there is another process called oogenesis. So this is the production of egg. Okay, spermatogenesis starts from the cell spermatogonia. So where is spermatogonia? In seminiferous tubules. As I discussed in previous questions, seminiferous tubules are the site for sperm synthesis. So we have spermatogonia which undergoes mitosis and produce large number of spermatogonia. So spermatogonia is diploid. Diploid means it is 2n. So 2n means 46 numbers of chromosomes are present here. And then the spermatogonia, few cells of spermatogonia are called primary spermatocytes. This primary spermatocytes will produce secondary spermatocytes. How? Through meiosis 1. So they undergo meiosis 1 and produce 2 secondary spermatocytes. And what are they? They are haploid. So they are N. Okay, they are N. That is 23 number of chromosomes. And then they undergo meiosis 2 to form spermatids. How much of spermatids? You have 4 number of spermatids, and they are also haploid. You have studied meiosis is a reductional division. So 2n becomes N. And then this spermatids undergo spermiogenesis, which is a spermatozoa. So to form spermatozoa or sperm. And when the sperm's head is attached, this process is called spermiation. So this is the process of spermatogenesis. Now we go to oogenesis. Oogenesis starts from the cell oogonia. Here spermatogonia. So in spermatogenesis it's spermatogonia, in oogenesis it's oogonia. Where is oogonia is present in the ovary. So this oogonia will form primary oocyte. So this primary oocyte, it is present within the primary follicle. So it is a follicle, and I will tell you, like, we have this ovary. Okay, we have this ovary. Inside ovary there is primary follicle. Inside primary follicle there is primary oocyte. So this is the exact position of the primary oocyte. Okay, this primary follicle will form secondary follicle. So what makes it different from primary follicle? The presence of a layer called as theca layer. So that's a layer called theca layer in the secondary follicle. And when this follicle is filled with a fluid called antrum, it forms a tertiary follicle. So while tertiary follicle is being formed, the primary oocyte is converted into secondary oocyte through meiosis. So this is meiosis 1, and a polar body is formed. So we have this primary oocyte. So this primary oocyte will get divided into 2, okay, during meiosis 1, and form the secondary oocyte and a polar body. So this polar body will degenerate. So it is not that, it will not be present, it will degenerate. Okay, and this tertiary follicle, will get converted to Graafian follicle. So when it gets converted to Graafian follicle, the secondary oocyte will form a layer called zona pellucida. So we have the secondary oocyte, right? It forms a layer called zona pellucida. So what is zona pellucida? Zona pellucida is a layer that prevents polyspermy. What is polyspermy? When an egg is fertilized by more than one sperm, it is called polyspermy. When an egg is fertilized by one sperm, it is called monospermy. So zona pellucida will prevent polyspermy. That is, it will make such that one egg is fertilized by one sperm only. So this is the role of zona pellucida. So after zona pellucida forms, this Graafian follicle will burst out and will lead to ovulation. Ovulation means release of ova. Okay, we saw here, right? It is the release of ovary. So release of ova into the infundibulum. Okay. So this is like ovulation, and you might think, where is meiosis 2? So we talked about meiosis 1. So meiosis 1 provides secondary oocyte and then polar body. So when secondary oocyte is produced, it undergoes ovulation and then it is present in the fallopian tube. After fertilization, only meiosis 2 occurs. When meiosis 2 occurs, there is like production of the egg nuclei and the polar body. So this polar body again will degenerate. So this is the process of spermatogenesis and oogenesis. So next question is, describe the structure of sperm and describe the structure of ovary. So there are 2 questions over here. So the structure of ovary is present here. So let's see. So this is the structure of ovary. As I said before, you have to draw the blood vessels. Primary follicle, as we saw in previous slide, and tertiary follicle, and this is antrum. Okay, and then you have this Graafian follicle. Graafian follicle is just enlargement of the tertiary follicle and the release of ovum, that is ovulation, and then after ovum is released, this Graafian follicle will form a corpus luteum. So this is also indicated here. And the second one is the structure of sperm. So in the structure of sperm, you have 3 parts: head, neck, middle piece, and then tail. Okay, 4 parts. And in head, we have this plasma membrane, the outer covering, an acrosome which contains enzymes so that the sperm can enter the egg. and then we have this nucleus which contains the chromosomal material which enters into the egg after acrosome digests the egg's outer membrane, that is it digests the zona pellucida. We saw over here, right, we have zona pellucida. So this acrosome will have enzyme that digests the zona pellucida. And the next one is neck. So next will connect middle piece to the head. So this middle piece will have the mitochondria. What does mitochondria do? It provides energy to the tail for swimming. So connected with the middle piece is the tail, as we see here. So you have this structure of ovary and sperm that you have to mention. So what is the events in menstrual cycle? You have to mention it. So menstrual cycle usually begins at the puberty and is called menarche when it begins at the puberty. And then menstrual cycle has three phases: menstrual phase and follicular phase and luteal phase. So menstrual phase is a phase where the endometrium, so you have this uterine lining, so you have this uterus and there is this lining, right? So this lining is called as the endometrium. So this is the endometrium, okay? So this endometrium sheds off along with the egg, okay? So when does menstruation occurs? When there is no fertilization. So the egg has to be discarded. So it comes out with the endometrium layer, that is shedding, okay? Next is the follicular phase. So after shedding, the next phase is follicular phase, whereas the follicle gets developed, okay, from primary follicle till the Graafian follicle. So you have Graafian follicle, right? So from primary to the Graafian follicle, development occurs in the follicular phase, okay? Here you have a slight build-up of the endometrium. So at exactly 14th day, that is middle of the menstrual cycle, you have an increase in two hormones such as follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. So you see a peak over here. So this is indicated by rise in the level. So how does this rise? Because there is ovulation. So when ovulation occurs, two hormones increase: follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. So they increase in activity. So what happens is there is a endometrium development. So this is also aided by estrogen levels also. So after this you have this luteal phase. So luteal phase, what happens is that you have this corpus luteum. So where does corpus luteum come from? From Graafian follicle. When corpus luteum comes, the hormone progesterone is produced. When hormone progesterone is produced, it stabilizes or maintains the endometrial layer. So for implantation. So when it is maintained, and then it after like 25 to 27 days, there is a regressing corpus luteum, that is corpus luteum degrades and progesterone also comes down in level. So what happens? Again the menstruation phase occurs, that is you have menses. So these are the three phases, and you have follicular stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, estrogen and then progesterone that plays an important role in menstrual cycle. So these are all the points that you have to write in your question paper, so answer paper. So the next question is how implantation leads to pregnancy. So here we have this blastomia. So in the blastocyst. So you have blastocyst. After fertilization, you have zygote. So this zygote will develop into a blastocyst or blastomia. So this blastomia have an outer covering called trophoblast and then inner cell mass. So we have trophoblast and then inner cell mass. So we have these both regions of the blastomia. So in which trophoblast will attach the uterine wall. So it will go and attach to the uterine wall. And the icium develops into an embryo. So the cells over here will develop into an embryo. Okay. Next, what happens is uterine cells divide rapidly and cover the blastocyst. So what happens is you have this uterine wall and then you have this blastocyst. What happens is uterine wall will cover the blastocyst, and so that there is an implantation. That is, the zygote or the blastocyst will go and attach the uterine wall, and this leads to the pregnancy. Okay, these are all the points you have to write for this question. The next is you have to explain the procedure of pregnancy and embryonic development. So here, as we saw before, implantation, this is a continuation of implantation. This question is a continuation of implantation. So we have this trophoblast. Okay, this trophoblast will form a finger-like projections. Okay, this is a finger-like projections, and this is the uterine wall. So you have the uterine wall over here. So this finger-like projection is called chronic villi. So this chronic villi and uterine tissue will get interdigitated. What is interdigitated? That is, they interlock together. Okay. So here is the uterine wall. So the uterine wall will get interdigitated. So it is like this. So this is the uterine wall, and here you have this trophoblast forming a chronic villi. So this is the trophoblast and this is the uterine wall, and these both together will form the placenta. Okay, what does placenta do? They supply oxygen and nutrients to the embryo, and also the removal of carbon dioxide, excretory waste materials produced by the embryo. Okay, so placenta also act as endocrine tissue. They produce human chorionic gonadotrophin, human placental lactogen, estrogen, and then progestogens. So they have other hormones produced by other mechanisms. So other hormones are estrogens and progestogens also produce cortisol, prolactin, and thyroxine. What they do? They support the embryo development and maintain the pregnancy. Okay. The next part is the ICM. So inner cell mass. Inner cell mass will develop into ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. Okay, these are the three layers present in our human body. So that gets developed. So this has ICM. ICM has stem cells. So stem cells, what are they? They can differentiate into any tissue and organ. Okay. So that's how a human fetus is produced. So for human, 1 month you have heart development, 2 months limbs and digits develop, 12 weeks major organs and tissues are developed, 24 weeks body is usually covered with fine hair, eyelids separate and eyelashes are formed, 9 months they are like fully developed form. Okay. So the last question, write a short note on parturition and lactation. Okay. So here we have the answer. So we have a vigorous contraction of the uterus. Like after 9 months, there is a vigorous contraction of the uterus where the delivery of the fetus occurs. Okay, this process is called parturition. So it is induced by complex neuroendocrine mechanism. Okay, and signal for parturition will originate from the fully developed fetus. So once the fetus is fully developed, it signals for parturition. And placenta induced mild uterine contraction, which is called fetal ejection reflex. Okay, that is a uterine contraction so that the fetus will be delivered, and this is called parturition. Next, define lactation. Lactation, the mammary glands, the female undergo differentiation during pregnancy and they start producing milk. And this process is called lactation. So what is the first milk called? They are called as colostrum. And these are all the points that you have to write for parturition and lactation. And summary. After completion of this chapter, you will have a complete knowledge of human reproduction. We covered main sexual parts of the male and female, about proper process of sexual reproduction, and then gametogenesis, menstrual cycle, fertilization and implantation are also learned from this chapter. Pregnancy and embryonic development is explained, and lactation and parturition is also explained, and some other related topics are also understood during studying of this chapter. And this is about our institution. And then thank you. Have a nice day.